My name is Paul. I'm a professional real estate agent in the western part of Virginia near Lexington. And today I'm making an appeal out to all builders, homesteaders, anyone who can construct, build, harvest, make timber, whatever. We really need you here in Virginia because, first of all, there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a big demand now to move out into the country and to people my age, for example, retiring or semi-retiring. Young people want to start a household. There are lots of schools in Virginia, there's colleges, there's recreation, there's lots of beauty, there's plenty of land, there's good soil, there's water, there's government encouragement. There's a need for people to have homes. Now, last year, ever since this whole COVID, actually since the new administration came in about a year ago, the lumber prices went really high. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the builders. I'm not a professional builder myself. I'm in the industry. I have contact with builders and I meet people. I find out about what's going on. I was just at a meeting recently and one of the city officials said that they really needed a 50,000 square foot warehouse, two of them in the state of Virginia near Waynesboro. Now there's a big highway going through there. There's Route 81, there's Route 64. It goes east to over to Richmond. It goes west to the western part of West Virginia. So there is opportunity just waiting, but I guess what the problem is the building costs. Now, building costs involve, of course, the price of the land. Now, in rural Virginia, there really is a strong demand for single-family homes. We just don't have enough of them. Now, some people moving to the country really would like to have an estate kind of thing, a homestead, with the land, with the septic and well and so on. Other people would rather just have a small home in a fairly small community, maybe on a country road somewhere, a small house, a couple acres maybe, and make it simple. Now, as far as the price of property here, let's take an average of 1,000 square feet and use a number. 1,000 square feet house today in the real estate market in Virginia. And of course, the building technique and all matters a lot. So we're using a very rough figure here. $130 a square foot for a modest home. Naturally, as you get a higher priced home, the cost per square foot goes up quite dramatically. But the kind of home that people really need in Virginia, the retirees my age, they don't want a big mansion typically. Some of them do, but many of them are just downsizing. They just want a fairly small house that's easy to take care of. So 1,000 square feet is a fairly decent size of space for a retired couple. Maybe a yard, some place for the grandkids to come and visit, maybe a spare room or something. But if you build a house that has a very basic factor on the lower end, where people can say, okay, build a house there, a starter home, a 2-bedroom, say, a family, they have a kid, maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, fairly standard type of house. If you build it in such a way that the costs are low, for example, not having a basement lowers the cost of a house. Just having a slab, for example. If it's the terrain is amenable, the driveway, construction, and so on, there's areas where you can build and have reasonably flat land, so you don't have to do a lot of excavating. But the preparation for a small development, let's say 10 houses or so, and in those 10 houses, each of them has a couple acres. People will buy such a house. The young people looking for a house, $150,000 to $200,000, $150,000 for a 1,000 square foot house. That's a really nice pocket for a lot of young people, for example, to start a household. As far as features, you can always add patios, decks, things like that. Sometimes builders will say, well, here's a basic type of house, and if you want a deck, it'll be a few more thousand or something like that, or they can build a patio or something like that. So if you are creative and flexible in your building and build unique properties, because a lot of people have been in the city homesteads, for example, the suburbs rather, where every house is very similar and the yards are similar and it's all like boring. when people move and retire, they like to something a little bit unique and different. So you get the right kind of terrain where it's not just a bunch of cookie cutter houses, and you give a little bit of extra features and roofing styles, for example, so that people will have a choice. And you can offer some model homes and sell them, but if you're a builder that has a record, you can show a pamphlet of the type of houses that you can build and give people a chance. But Virginia is growing. I live near Lexington. It was the fifth most busiest transactions in the state of Virginia in the last year of 2021. And you have areas like Charlottesville growing, Waynesboro, Staunton. Gradually what happens, these small cities, they don't go up in the smaller cities. They don't start building huge multiple story, 20, 30 story buildings. They typically go with the small, larger places like the shopping centers or 2 or 3 story office building type things where people can not be intimidated by these really tall structures that you find in some of the larger cities. The people who want to live in those small cities do not like high rises and so on. So the kind of house that you could build in a city in outside of, say, Waynesboro would be a modest-sized house, a fairly easy construction. It doesn't need to be fancy. People can upgrade, offer some options. People are very handy out in the countryside. A lot of people will say, hey, you know, I can deal with some real basics, but while I'm living there, I'm going to build myself a better deck or make myself a garden or add a shed or something like that. So it doesn't have to be a fancy house. It just needs to be something that serves the needs and is pleasant to live in with a decent community around it, that people can feel comfortable and access to recreation. And in Virginia, there's tons and tons of recreation opportunities. So that's another thing that people save on. There are some people, like for example in Connecticut, they'll buy a fancy house, but God forbid they need to take a vacation because they're going to drive like 3 hours north somewhere, a place to have a relaxing time. But in the countryside, recreation does not need to be very expensive because in Virginia we have the Shenandoah River, we have lots of fishing, we have other rivers, there's hunting, and just basically the hiking trails, the Blue Ridge Parkway and so on. So by living in a state like Virginia, you have a lot of the amenities of a beautiful place to live, not too far from you. So your home doesn't need to be too fancy. And then a lot of people, like I said, they like to expand their own homes and add their own little touches to it. So when you build a bathroom, it can be an effective bathroom, and it doesn't have to be super fancy, but let's say somebody moves in and say, hey, I like the bathroom, it's basically pretty good, and I just got to upgrade the faucets or something. They can do that on their own and add some of their own investment to their property. So again, I'm really putting out a really deep, heartfelt request to builders, homesteaders, please come to Virginia. We need you. There's a market for your services here, and there's a lot of beautiful land and scenery to see. So at least check it out. My favorite phrase is Virginia, come to visit. Visit for fun, stay for life. So thanks again for listening. I appreciate all the feedback. Any questions that people have about buying and selling real estate in Virginia, I'm a specialist in rural property. That's what I do. I love the rural lifestyle myself because it's very relaxing and efficient and simple and surrounded by nature. So again, I hope to see you in some of my other videos, and please like and share if you like the content. My contact information is in the main part of this YouTube section. So thanks again.